Welcome to part 2 of this video series on setting up Hyper-V on Windows Server 2016. I wanted to point a couple things out before I get going. One of the things I noticed when I looked at my server, and actually let me close off a few things. This is let's see, Kali can go away, NST can go away, FedSec can go away. This Windows 10 is in a different LAN segment. I guess I could really move it over if I wanted to. One thing I'm actually going to do, notice I've got about 4.5 gigs running. I haven't started any VMs. My domain controller is currently inert, hibernated, practically speaking. I don't have my System Center server, what will become my Hyper-V System Center server, upright yet, but I'm going to actually dial this RAM back a little bit. I gave it 4 gig. I had it at 4. I bumped it to 6. I'm going to actually push it back down to 4 because, well, it is useful in itself as a platform for doing things in desktop Hyper-V. One of the things we're going to start working, we're actually going to talk, because this demo video is relevant to both Chapter 5 and to Chapter 6 of our text. We're going to talk about both server and desktop Hyper-V virtualization. So I've kind of demoed the desktop already. But I want to keep this one up and available to me while it's in the and put it back in its appropriate domain, and then also have enough horsepower left over under the hood to also run my DC and my System Center. So one of the other things that I noticed. Okay, so the other day I added a couple of extra hard drives. I had one hard drive. I added another, and I chose NVMe. This wasn't an option in earlier versions of Workstation. So, okay, click that. And I'm going to power on that virtual machine. I'm also, at the same time, I'm going to resume my my domain controller. Put it, actually not, okay, sorry, not in full screen mode. That's not what I meant to do at all. No. Okay, actually I meant to go into, okay, busy. Okay, so it didn't let me do that. That's fine. Okay, so let me put it into console mode. Yeah, that's what I wanted to do. Put it in console mode. So this server 2019 that I built a couple of months ago spun up using a 60 gig SCSI drive. The 2016 server that I just built earlier today came out of the box with an NVMe. I believe that's a new feature in a new option in the latest version of Workstation. So the other thing I'm going to do, I'm going to start this process and then pause it at some point because I don't want to belabor everything. But there are some things you need to think about right off the bat. Preparing to build the site, to deploy the Hyper-V server rope. Now there is another way to do this. What I'm going to use is the Data Center desktop edition because it will be a little bit better suited to very large hard drives. Not that I'll have one, and is really more appropriate to what we're modeling here, which is a data center virtualization. Now, your instructions in the labs don't specifically say to do data center. So if you prefer standard, that's fine too. There's also a special edition of Windows Server called the Hyper-V server, discussed in this book and also in ours. You could even potentially, I think, run Hyper-V on server core. That you could just, so it's basically just Hyper-V. Just as my ESXi hosts are nothing but a Type 1 hypervisor. This is essentially going to be a very powerful type 2. But Hyper-V can also function as a type 1. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start this thing up. Let me actually get my performance monitor back. I do like watching these things ramp up. Okay. Eventually, I'll put this thing in the domain. But at the moment, all I need to do is log into this one. And it's logging into the domain. I'll be happy. Your instructions in, particularly in Chapter 6, are to create a new domain controller, promote the server domain controller. In my case, I'm essentially going to promote my Server 16 system as a domain controller in an existing domain rather than creating a new forest. But that'll be later on. No internet. Okay, so I am in the cyberpenguin.fbc domain, no internet access. That's kind of also what this thing here means. I'm not going to worry about connectivity right this second. So let's go back to my server. So it's simulated NVMe. And I can actually kind of see, always on top. See, I can actually see it here. Even if I have everything squished, I can see it here. So I'm going to power on this virtual machine. One of the first things you're going to want to do is make sure you click in there and hit your enter key to boot from the CD. And once I make my edition choice, I'm going to pause for a while. And then we'll get into installing the server role in a little bit. The thing to note here is Hyper-V is a feature in Windows 10. Hyper-V is a role in Windows Server 2016-2019. That's just another indication that it is tightly integrated to the OS. This is another reason, and we sort of discussed this in class, if you are running a Windows Server environment and you intend to go on running a Windows Server environment and you need virtualization, don't switch courses to VMware Workstation unless you have a very good reason for doing so. Say, for example, if you're a Windows shop and you're just deciding to go into try out some virtualization, stick with what you know. Use Hyper-V at the desktop. Use Hyper-V on your servers. If your business model is pivoting from a company that has some servers and does a little virtualization on the side to a company that does virtualization, and you've decided, hey, for the purposes of a company that now is focusing on virtualization, we think we'll get better bang for our buck, more bang for our buck rather, with VMware, then make that decision. But it's not a decision to make lightly. So what I'm going to do, I am going to click Next, Install Now. There's nothing on this hard drive. The first thing to select is essentially my edition. And I think I'm looking at 9 minutes here. I'll probably stop after that, at least for a while. So I'm going to choose Data Center with the desktop experience. Click Next. I'm going to accept the license terms. I'm going to do, let's see, Windows Only Advanced. I'm going to click New, Apply. It's going to spawn a number of hard drives, a number of partitions rather, usual, easy peasy, come on. Okay, and now I'll stop because it's going to do this for a while. Actually, you know, I'll make that the next video another video. We'll be back later with more of this process.